I still can't believe it. I woke up early, left home on time, and I still missed my train. For about 10 minutes, I thought my whole day was ruined.
Wait, you actually missed it? That's surprising. You're usually very careful with time. What happened?
That's the strange part. Nothing big happened. I wasn't late, I wasn't running behind. I just stood on the wrong platform. I watched my train leave from the other side.
Oh no, that must have felt terrible. You could actually see it leaving?
Yes, the doors closed and then it slowly moved away. I just stood there with my backpack, looking at it. I didn't even know whether to laugh or feel angry.
I think I would do both. Sometimes those moments are so unbelievable that laughing is the only thing you can do.
Exactly. At first, I felt embarrassed because there were other people around me. Then I felt frustrated because I had planned everything so carefully.
I know that feeling. When you spend time making a good plan, one small mistake feels much bigger than it really is.
Yes, I kept thinking, how could I do something so simple? It wasn't a difficult trip. I've taken that train before.
Sometimes our brains surprise us. We pay attention to 100 difficult things, and then we forget one very easy thing.
That's exactly what happened. I checked the time, I checked my ticket, I checked my bag, but I never checked the platform number one last time.
It's funny how our minds work. We become so confident that we stop checking the simplest details.
For a few minutes, I thought the day was over before it even started.
Did you have somewhere important to go?
Yes, I wanted to visit a small town about an hour away. I'd been planning the trip for almost 2 weeks. I needed a quiet day because work had been very busy.
That sounds like something you'd really look forward to. I can understand why missing the train felt so disappointing.
Exactly. I even packed snacks the night before. I charged my headphones, I downloaded music for the trip. Everything was ready, except me.
Everything except the person taking the train.
Pretty much.
By the way, hi everyone, I'm Emma.
And I'm Alex.
Today we're talking about a day that started with one small mistake, but turned into something completely unexpected.
If someone had told me that missing my train would become the best part of my week, I never would have believed them.
I already have so many questions, but before you tell me what happened next, I have to say I've made a similar mistake.
Really? That actually makes me feel a little better.
Mine happened during a holiday. I arrived at the station very early. I was feeling proud because I wasn't rushing for once. Then I looked at the departure board and realized I was at the wrong station.
No way.
Yes, there are 2 stations with very similar names in my city. I went to the wrong one without thinking.
That sounds even more stressful.
It was. I remember standing there with my suitcase, looking around, hoping I had made a mistake that could magically fix itself.
Unfortunately, train stations don't work like that.
No, they don't.
So what did you do?
I found a taxi and somehow I arrived just a few minutes before my train left. It was expensive, but I caught it.
That's lucky. My story didn't go that way.
So after your train disappeared, what did you do?
First, I sat on a bench. I didn't want to make another decision too quickly because I was annoyed with myself.
That's actually a good idea. When I'm upset, I sometimes make another bad decision because I'm trying to solve the first one too fast.
Exactly. I bought a cup of coffee and just watched people walking through the station.
Did that help?
More than I expected. After about 10 minutes, I stopped thinking about the mistake and started noticing everything around me. Families were saying goodbye, friends were laughing. One little boy was so excited that he kept pointing at every train.
I love people watching. Every person seems to have their own little story.
That's what I realized. For the first time that morning, I wasn't thinking about myself anymore.
That's an interesting change. Sometimes stepping back helps us see things differently.
Then I checked the schedule again. The next train wasn't for another hour.
An hour feels very long when you're waiting.
It really does. At first, I almost went home.
Really? You were ready to cancel the whole trip?
Yes, I thought maybe it wasn't worth going anymore.
But something changed your mind.
Yes, and honestly, that one decision changed everything.
It's a simple thought, but sometimes we need to hear it.
Exactly. I couldn't change what happened. The train was gone, but I could still decide what happened next.
That's a much healthier way to think. I don't always remember that in the moment.
Neither do I. That's why this day surprised me so much.
So you had almost an hour before the next train. What did you do?
I decided not to sit on the bench anymore. I started walking around the station. It wasn't a huge station, but I had never really looked at it before.
Most of us don't. We're usually in a hurry.
Exactly. Normally I'm thinking about the train, not the place.
It's funny how waiting can slow us down in a good way.
There was a small bookstore near the entrance. I had passed it many times before, but I had never gone inside.
Oh, I love little bookstores. They always feel calm.
This one was. Soft music was playing, and there weren't many people inside.
Did you buy anything?
I told myself I was only looking.
That's what everyone says before buying a book.
You're right. 10 minutes later, I walked out with a small travel book.
I knew it.
It wasn't expensive, and the cover caught my attention. It was full of short stories about small towns and quiet places.
That sounds perfect for your trip.
I thought the same thing. I even started reading while I waited for the next train.
Did reading help you forget about missing the first train?
Completely. By then, I wasn't thinking about my mistake anymore.
That's a big change in less than an hour.
It really was. Then something else happened.
Here comes another surprise.
An older man sat beside me. He noticed the book and smiled.
Did he say something?
Yes. He asked if I liked visiting small towns.
That's a nice way to start a conversation.
It felt natural. I told him I was going somewhere new for the day.
Were you comfortable talking to him?
At first, I wasn't sure, but he was friendly, and we were both waiting for the same train.
Sometimes waiting brings people together.
That's exactly what happened.
What did you talk about?
He told me he had been traveling by train for many years. He said every trip gave him a new memory.
I like that idea.
Then he said something I still remember.
What was it?
He smiled and said, "The best journeys don't always begin the way you planned."
Wow, that's such a simple sentence, but it means a lot.
That's what I thought. I almost told him I had missed my train, but before I could speak, he laughed a little and said he had missed hundreds of trains in his life.
Really?
Yes. He said he had also missed buses, flights, meetings, and even birthdays because of travel problems.
That actually makes me feel better about my own mistakes.
Me too. He wasn't proud of those mistakes, but he didn't let them define his day.
That's an important difference.
He told me one missed train helped him discover a beautiful little cafe, where he later met one of his closest friends.
No way!
That's exactly what I said.
I guess life really can surprise us.
He wasn't saying mistakes are good. He was saying we shouldn't let one mistake decide the rest of the day,
I think many people need that reminder.
including me.
Did the train finally arrive?
Yes, and we actually sat in the same carriage.
That's nice.
We didn't talk the whole journey. Sometimes we looked out of the window, sometimes we read our books. It was quiet, but comfortable.
I like that kind of silence. Not every conversation needs constant talking.
Exactly. Every now and then we'd point at something outside or make a short comment.
That sounds peaceful.
It really was. I realized I had completely forgotten the stress from earlier.
Amazing. Just a little while before, you thought the whole day was ruined.
And now I was actually enjoying the slower start.
Sometimes we fight against delays so much that we never notice what they give us.
That's exactly how I felt.
So when you arrived at the town, did everything go as planned?
Not at all.
I'm not surprised anymore.
Neither was I. By then, I was ready for another unexpected moment.
Something tells me the best part of the day hadn't even happened yet.
You're right. It was waiting just a few streets away from the station.
Now I'm really curious. What was only a few streets away?
At first, I didn't even notice it. I was following the map on my phone because I wanted to visit a small park.
So the park was your original plan.
Yes, I wanted a quiet place to walk, read my new book, and relax for a few hours.
That sounds like a perfect day already.
It did, but as I walked through the streets, I heard music.
Music?
Live music. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to make me stop walking.
I would stop too. Live music always catches my attention.
I followed the sound, and after turning one corner, I found a small town square full of people.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
There were little wooden stalls, colorful flowers, and local artists showing their work. I had no idea there was a weekend market.
You didn't plan to see any of that.
Not at all. If I had caught my first train, I would have arrived too early. The market hadn't even opened yet.
So missing the train changed your arrival time just enough.
Exactly. It was the first moment I thought, maybe this mistake wasn't so bad.
I love when life surprises us like that.
I started walking slowly through the market. Nobody was rushing. People were smiling and talking. The whole place felt peaceful.
That's very different from a busy train station.
Completely different. About an hour earlier, I was watching a train disappear. Now I was listening to music with a coffee in my hand.
Wait, another coffee?
Yes, apparently coffee became an important part of the story.
I don't blame you. A good coffee can improve almost any day.
There was a small cafe beside the square. The owner had placed a few tables outside under some trees.
That sounds relaxing already.
It was. I ordered a coffee and a small piece of homemade cake.
Now you're making me hungry.
I wish I could bring you one. It was honestly one of the best cakes I've ever eaten.
Was it one of those moments where everything suddenly feels calm?
Yes, I sat there for almost half an hour. I wasn't checking the time anymore. I wasn't thinking about work. I was simply enjoying where I was.
That's not easy to do these days.
I know. Usually I'm thinking about the next thing I have to do.
Me too. Sometimes even during a relaxing day, I'm already thinking about tomorrow.
Exactly. But somehow that day felt different.
Do you think missing the train forced you to slow down?
I really do. If everything had gone according to plan, I probably would have rushed from one place to another.
That's interesting. We often believe a perfect plan creates the perfect day.
But sometimes a perfect plan leaves no room for surprises.
I never thought about it like that.
Neither had I until that day.
So after the market, did you finally visit the park?
Yes, and that's where another unexpected moment happened.
Your day was full of surprises.
It really was. The park was quiet. There were only a few people walking or reading on benches.
That sounds peaceful.
I found the bench near a small lake and opened the travel book I had bought at the station.
The one you never planned to buy.
Exactly. I read a short story about a traveler who said that the best memories usually begin with unexpected changes.
That sounds very familiar.
I actually smiled because it matched my own day so perfectly.
It's funny how different moments can connect like that.
Then I looked up from the book and saw a family feeding ducks near the water.
Simple moments like that can make us surprisingly happy.
Yes, nothing exciting was happening, nobody was doing anything special, but everyone looked relaxed.
I think we sometimes forget how beautiful ordinary moments can be.
I agree. I spent almost an hour just walking around the lake.
Without checking your phone every 5 minutes?
Believe it or not, yes.
That's impressive.
I even put my phone back in my backpack because I wanted to enjoy the afternoon without distractions.
I should try that more often.
It's difficult at first.
Very difficult.
But after a while, I stopped thinking about messages or notifications.
Did you feel different?
Much calmer. It felt like my mind had more space.
I know exactly what you mean.
When I finally looked at the time again, I couldn't believe it. Hours had passed, but they didn't feel wasted.
They felt well spent.
Exactly.
So, what happened before you went home?
I decided to walk back toward the station before sunset.
Nice and slowly, I hope.
Very slowly. I wasn't in a hurry anymore.
Something tells me your last surprise happened on that walk.
It did, and it completely changed the way I think about bad days.
Now you have to tell me. You can't stop there.
I promise I won't. As I walked back to the station, I noticed a small path that wasn't on the main street.
Did you decide to follow it?
I almost didn't. I thought, maybe I should just go back. But then I remembered I still had plenty of time before my train home.
So you followed your curiosity.
Yes, the path was lined with tall trees, and after a few minutes, it opened into a beautiful viewpoint over the town.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
It really was. I could see the rooftops, the little streets, and the hills in the distance. The sun was beginning to go down, so everything had a warm golden color.
Those are the moments you never forget.
Exactly. There weren't many people there, just a few couples, a photographer, and one man walking his dog.
Quiet places like that always make me slow down.
I sat on a bench and didn't say anything for several minutes. I just looked at the view.
That sounds peaceful.
It was. And then I started thinking about the morning.
The moment you missed the train?
Yes, I remembered how upset I had been. I honestly believed the day was ruined.
It's amazing how different the same day can feel a few hours later.
I actually laughed to myself because I realized something.
What did you realize?
I had spent so much energy fighting something I couldn't change.
That's true. Once the train left, there was nothing you could do about it.
Exactly. But I kept replaying the mistake in my mind instead of enjoying the time I still had.
I think we've all done that.
Have you?
Many times. I remember one weekend when I planned a picnic with some friends.
What happened?
It rained all morning.
Oh no.
I was disappointed because we'd planned everything for days. I kept looking out the window and thinking the whole weekend was a failure.
Did you cancel it?
We did. But one friend suggested we meet at her apartment instead.
That was a good idea.
It turned out to be one of the funniest afternoons I've ever had. We cooked together, played board games, listened to music, and talked for hours.
So the original plan disappeared, but the day was still wonderful.
Exactly. If the weather had been perfect, we would have had a completely different memory.
I like that. Sometimes a different plan isn't a worse plan.
Sometimes it's even better.
That sentence stayed with me while I sat on that bench.
Did you write it down anywhere?
Actually, yes. I opened the notebook I carry in my backpack and wrote, "A changed plan can still become a good story."
I love that.
I wanted to remember it because I knew I'd probably forget the feeling after a busy week.
That's smart. Feelings can disappear if we don't remind ourselves.
Exactly.
Did you stay there until sunset?
Almost. The sky slowly changed from blue to orange and pink. It was beautiful.
I always feel calm when I watch the sunset.
Me too. It reminds me that the day doesn't have to be perfect to be meaningful.
That's a lovely thought.
I think that was the moment my whole attitude changed.
Not just about that day?
No, about small problems in general.
Tell me more.
Before that trip, if one thing went wrong, I often believed everything else would go wrong too.
Almost like one mistake controlled the whole day.
Exactly.
I used to think like that as well.
Really?
Yes. If I woke up late or forgot something at home, I would tell myself, this is going to be a bad day.
It's interesting how powerful those little thoughts can be.
They really are. Once you believe the day is bad, you start noticing only the bad things.
That's true, but that day taught me to look for something good instead.
Not because the problem disappeared.
But because the day was still full of possibilities.
I think that's a lesson many people learn only after living through an experience like yours.
I agree. Nobody could have explained it to me as well as that day did.
And it all started with standing on the wrong platform.
Yes, one small mistake changed everything, but not in the way I expected.
So when you finally returned to the station, were you still thinking about the train you had missed that morning?
No. By then, I was actually grateful I had missed it.
That's a sentence I never thought I'd hear.
Neither did I. But there was one final moment on the journey home that made the whole experience feel complete.
There's still one more moment? Your day really kept surprising you.
It did. When I arrived back at the station, I had about 15 minutes before my train home.
Were you tired by then?
A little. My feet were tired from walking so much, but it was a good kind of tired.
I know exactly what you mean. The kind that comes after a happy day.
Exactly. I bought a bottle of water and found a seat on the platform.
The correct platform this time.
Yes, I checked the platform number 3 times.
I think I would have checked it 5 times.
I probably would now.
Did you see the older man again?
I did. He was standing near the end of the platform with the same book in his hand.
What a nice surprise.
When he saw me, he smiled and waved.
Did you tell him about your day?
Yes, we only talked for a few minutes before the train arrived, but I told him about the market, the cafe, the park, and the viewpoint.
What did he say?
He smiled and said, "I had a feeling your day would turn out well."
That's such a kind thing to say.
Then he added something I'll probably remember for a long time.
What was it?
He said, "Life doesn't always reward perfect plans. Sometimes it rewards flexible people."
Wow.
I didn't answer immediately because I was thinking about those words.
I would have done the same.
Then our train arrived and we found seats not far from each other again.
Did you keep talking?
Only for a little while. Most of the journey home was quiet.
Comfortable silence again.
Yes. Before he left the train, he simply wished me a safe journey and said he hoped I'd keep visiting new places.
Did you ever learn his name?
No.
Really?
No. We never introduced ourselves.
That's surprising.
It is, but somehow it doesn't bother me.
Why not?
Because I think some people come into our lives for a very short time, but they still leave us with something important.
I like that thought.
I don't remember every word we said, but I remember how calm I felt after talking to him.
Sometimes that's more important.
Exactly.
When you finally got home, what was the first thing you thought?
I put my backpack on the floor, sat on my sofa, and smiled.
Just smiled?
Yes. I realized I had spent the entire morning believing I had lost a great day, but in reality, I had just found a different one.
That's beautiful.
It honestly changed the way I think about unexpected problems.
Have you noticed that change since then?
Yes, of course I still get frustrated sometimes.
We're all human.
Exactly. But now I try not to decide too quickly that a day is ruined.
That's a good habit.
Instead, I ask myself one simple question.
What question?
What good thing could still happen today?
I really like that.
It doesn't magically solve every problem,
No,
but it changes where my attention goes.
that's true. Instead of looking only at what's wrong, you start looking for new possibilities.
Exactly.
I think my biggest lesson is slightly different.
Really? What is it?
I learned that rushing isn't always the answer.
How so?
There have been days when everything went according to my schedule, but I barely remember them now.
That's interesting.
But I clearly remember the unexpected days. The rainy picnic, the wrong station, the conversations I never planned to have.
You're right.
Those are the memories that stay with me.
I think it's because unexpected moments make us pay attention.
I agree. We notice the world more carefully when life surprises us,
And sometimes those surprises become our favorite stories.
including this one.
Definitely this one.
You know, if you had caught your train that morning, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation today.
That's true. I would probably tell you I visited a nice little town.
Instead, you came home with a story.
And I think stories are worth more than perfect plans.
I couldn't agree more.
Now, every time I'm standing on a platform, I quietly smile to myself.
Because you remember that day?
Yes, and because I know one small mistake doesn't have to decide how the rest of the day will feel.
I think that's a wonderful place to end this story.
Me too.
Thanks for spending this time with us. I'm Emma.
And I'm Alex.
We'll see you next time.
Take care.